Hi, I'm Joe Feeks, editor of Pig Health Today, and with me is Dr. Scott Dee. He's Director of Research for Pipestone Veterinary Services in Minnesota. Great to see you, Scott.
Hey, Joe, back again. Here we go.
Absolutely. And you know, we've had you on this program many, many times, and it seems like we always talk about the same thing, and that's African swine fever, or even the transmission of other viruses through feed ingredients, but it's a rapidly changing story. What's the latest?
Well, like you said, it's a new area of science. You know, it really never got figured out until we did it in 2014 with PED. And now it's been building, and now ASF, there's been a lot of good experiments done that shows ASF can survive in feed through a transoceanic simulation. There's great work by Dr. Niederwerder at Kansas State University showing that if pigs consume contaminated feed, they can get infected with ASF feed. So that's a transmission component. She's also looking at half-life calculations. How long does the virus actually live in the feed? So there's a bunch of new stuff coming out on ASF in feed.
And certainly the feed industry has been quick to respond to this as well. But here at the 2019 Leman Swine Conference, you're actually advocating that we develop some kind of a national plan to protect the industry against virus transmission via feed ingredients. What does that look like?
Well, kudos to the Canadians because they've already put one in place. They have a plan looking at high-risk feed ingredients based on our research coming from ASV-positive countries. And so it's what I would look at and call it a responsible imports type of approach. How do you bring these high-risk ingredients into a country safely using science? Because some of these products aren't made in North America. And we have to buy them from places like China. And so the industry, I think the swine industry, as the Canadians have done in the US, we have to bond together and put together plans that look at how to manage these ingredients safely through proper, a different way of importing, as I mentioned, responsible imports, and also the potential for using feed additives as mitigants. So it's a multi-pronged approach that we're trying to put together.
And define responsible imports.
Yeah, responsible imports is an idea that our CEO, Luke Minion, proposed when we started understanding that there are these ingredients we have to bring in. How do we do it safely? And he asked me to develop some principles around that. And so we look at, you know, where's the product coming from? Is it coming from an ASV-positive country? Are there alternative countries? What's the exact ingredient? What's the time it takes to get here? What's the half-life of the virus in the feed? Has there been any treatment, any mitigation to the feed to reduce risk? So it's kind of a step-by-step approach of understanding the movement of feed ingredients across from country to country, which really had never ever been done before until we started seeing the risk with PED. So it's a complete change of paradigm. It's almost like a quarantine where the feed will be handled very differently and put in a storage area, allow time to take its effect and virus to decay over time, and then safely introduce it into mills versus just roll it in, you know? So it's a lot different, and the world's changing very quickly.
And how do you go about implementing a national plan and also auditing it to make sure it's working?
Yeah, we've developed our own in our company, and we have auditors in China. We have auditors in the United States. We've got select warehouses that these products enter and protocols to handle the products accordingly from start to finish. So we've actually got a very well organized responsible import plan, and we offer it up as a model for the rest of the industry to use. And there are quite a few other companies that have already started a similar program.
Now, I've heard it said that certainly the feed ingredients origin is important, but even more importantly, it may hinge on how these ingredients are sourced, manufactured, handled, transported. So even if they're made in China, I mean, can you look at certain sources of feed ingredients and be more confident in some sources than others?
So there's a lot of virus in the environment, and that's causing a lot of cross-contamination to ingredients. But I think you can break it up, to your point, into what I'll call fine ingredients, vitamins, trace minerals, and bulk ingredients, soy and various grains. And they're handled so differently. In the VTM side, I mean, they're very vitamin, trace mineral, very, very clean, sterile warehouses, and it's a closed system where the products are in tubes all the time and they're getting heated and treated with pH, and there's very little chance that the virus would ever survive the manufacturing process for a vitamin trace mineral manufacturing. It's the cross-contamination after it leaves the plant and before it gets on the boat and comes on over, that's where a lot of the risk is. The counter are the bulk grains, which, as you've probably seen pictures, are harvested, put on the road, and then everybody and anyone basically just drives over the top of them to kind of break them up, and they're swept up into bags and sent our way. So that's the biggest risk there, the bulk ingredients, the grains on the ground. And that's where the virus has been detected in the Chinese environment, is on those grains on the ground. So it's a very different approach based on the type of ingredient you're dealing with. Vitamins, trace minerals, fine ingredients, very low risk in my opinion, but the bulk grains is a different story.
What questions should the feed mills be asking of suppliers?
Well, just kind of what we've gone over is, what are your protocols for manufacturing? How are you handling the product? What's your temperatures? What's your pH? What's your storage time? What's your usual transport time on a boat? Those types of things. Do the containers stay sealed? Are you using a tag on the lock to prove that it's never been opened? Those types of things. But I think, to your point, a good question at the mill is, from the producers, is what are you bringing in from China? That's a question the producers have to start asking the mills. And if it's ingredients like VTMs, I think we can manage that. But it's these bulk grains that we have to be very, very careful of, because some of these get sold as organic, and it's questionable whether they are to begin with. But that's where some of these bulk grains are getting into our system under that premise that they're for an organic market. And we know that ASF lives very well in soy. We studied that, we've published that, that's well documented, well replicated across many different groups by now. So you start finding these mills on occasion that have this organic soy niche that they're trying to develop. The best thing they can do, as far as the producers, is just go have a conversation with that miller and say, if you want our business, maybe you want to reconsider this little niche market that you're trying to develop. That's been very effective.
Now, you've been doing a lot of work with feed mitigants.
Yes.
What have you learned?
I'm excited about feed mitigants. Yes, I've declared that 2019 the year of the mitigant, and we're testing 17 different products right now. We'll have, we've tested 7. We're going to test 10 more by the end of the year. And the goal is to have a list of products published for producers to look at and say, this one fits my price range, my mill can manage it, and it's in my risk tolerance level. But to your point, what are they doing? The mitigants are working. So it's at the mill type of an approach. So you could treat your tons of feed with a mitigant based on the science that says this mitigant actually reduces viral survival, and kind of almost have an insurance policy for your feed. Should it get contaminated, the mitigant would have a chance then to work and to break the virus down. That's what we're seeing. So pigs that are consuming mitigated feed that's challenged with, in my model, PED, PERS 174, and Seneca, which is an FMD surrogate, those pigs are much healthier and grow much faster on mitigated feed versus what we have, our positive control group, which is pigs getting fed non-mitigated feed, again with the same viral challenge. The mitigants, they could have an effect on pH. They've got an effect on viral survival. They've got an effect on viral quantity based on their mechanism of action. And a lot of that's not understood at this time, since these are products that it's kind of almost an adjunct effect. They're on the market for growth promotion or acidification of the gut or something like that. This is a whole new area, the antiviral effect that was never part of the plan. It was just kind of discovered. And I think the FDA is interested in having these companies come forward and get their products registered with this potential label claim for antiviral, but we're not that far yet. We're still in the discovery phase.
And I realize I think you said you're looking at like 17 different mitigants at this point, and I imagine they're all a little bit different, but I mean, is there is some common ground there? I mean, how do these mitigants actually work?
Yeah, Looking at the big buckets that we've looked at so far, I mean, there's formaldehyde products, there's organic acid products, there's medium chain fatty acid products. And so the chemistries are different, but you can kind of clump them into buckets. And it looks like that they all are effective. They're all basically equal to each other. They're all better than the control. The mechanism of action is probably a little hard to determine yet. It's not really that clear cut, but they all seem to be better than doing nothing. That's the good news for the producer.
So if you're making feed on one farm and then shipping it to another farm or to a contract grower, this is where a mitigant would really be helpful.
Exactly. It's almost like a bulletproofing of your feed. So if that virus ever got anywhere near it, it's going to annihilate it. So the domestic approach is, like you say, we talked foreign animal, but the domestic control, safe pork supply, that whole thing on the domestic level is extremely important for our endemic pathogens.
Well, thanks in part to your efforts, the industry has made tremendous headway over the last couple of years in keeping this virus at bay. Is there anything about it, though, that's still keeping you up at night?
Well, we haven't unified the feed risk yet. There's still some doubt that it is a risk. And I'll be the first to say it's not the highest level of risk. That's obviously smuggled meat, people doing dumb things like that. But it's a risk we have to include as we think about our national plan. And until we do that, I think a big piece of the puzzle has not been dealt with, and that's what keeps me up.